Hello, I'm Bud McCord. I'm here in Brazil, South America. It is March 16th, 2021. Welcome to Food for Thought, Thinking with Jesus. Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. I hope you're well today. I hope you're already focused on Jesus Christ and already open to listen to what he has to say about you, about your future, about your needs, about your life, and that you're ready to be a part of what he wants to do in the world today, in you and through you. The same thing would be true with me and Pam here in Brazil, and you wherever you are at this particular moment in Europe, in the Middle East, or somewhere in the United States or Canada or here in Brazil or in South America. It's really an honor to be able to speak to you each day a little bit about Jesus. It does me more good probably for me personally than it does for you, to be able to get up and organize these thoughts and get my day started focused on Jesus. I want to read a passage to you out of John chapter 8. You might want to remember that, John chapter 8. You might want to go back and read this later on. I have become convinced that the single greatest mistake that we humans can make is to underestimate Jesus. To have an idea of Jesus where we either dismiss him entirely or we hate him thoroughly or we know him well, but even knowing him well, our estimation of who he is not at the level that it should be. Jesus deliberately provoked people to reveal their true estimation of him. He didn't do it to hurt anybody. He did it to force people to come to grips with what it meant to be in his presence and who he was representing. In John chapter 8, there's one of the most powerful and difficult moments in Jesus' ministry when he is confronted about his identity and a group of people insults him. And they would even come to the point of picking up stones and wanting to kill him. That's how serious this got. John chapter 8, verse 48. Then the Jews answered and said to him, "Do we not say rightly that you are a Samaritan and have a demon?" Jesus answered, "I do not have a demon, but I honor my Father, and you dishonor me. And I do not seek my own glory. There is one who seeks and judges. Most assuredly I say to you, if anyone keeps my word, he shall never see death." Then the Jews said to him, "Now we know that you have a demon. Abraham is dead, and the prophets, and you say, if anyone keeps my word, he shall never taste death. Are you greater than our father Abraham, who is dead, and the prophets are dead? Who do you make yourself out to be?" Jesus answered, "If I honor myself, my honor is nothing. It is my Father who honors me, of whom you say that he is your God. Yet you have not known him, but I do know him. And if I say I do not know him, I shall be a liar like you. But I do know him and keep his word. Your father Abraham rejoiced to see my day, and he saw it and was glad." Then the Jews said to him, "You are not yet 50 years old, and have you seen Abraham?" Jesus said to them, "Most assuredly I say to you, before Abraham was, I am." Then they took up stones to throw at him. But Jesus hid himself and went out of the temple, going through the midst of them, and so passed by. This group of people actually was in the presence of Jesus. They actually had an opportunity to look at him physically and to hear his voice. Many of them, I'm sure, had seen some of his miracles, or at least heard about his miracles. Some of them perhaps had heard him teaching in the temple where he was at the time when this discussion was going on. And they each had an opportunity to declare with their own mouths their estimation of Jesus, and they missed it entirely. In fact, they insulted him by saying that he was of a mixed race, which historically would put him completely out of the flow of the true will of God. At least in their consideration, concerning the history of Israel. Then they said that he had a demon, which meant that not only was he out of the flow of the will of God, he was in the grip of the will of the enemy of God, which was Satan. So where they put him was at the very bottom and beyond the bottom. And we can look at that and say, well, that was terrible what they did, and it was horrible the way that they didn't understand whose presence they were in when they were talking to Jesus. But I want to carefully ask you a question. Do you right now recognize that Christ lives in you? And that you are in the presence of Jesus Christ? That Christ in you is the hope of you being able to glorify God? What is my estimation of Jesus in practical terms right now? It's so easy to criticize a biblical story about what the people of God, the Jewish people, did or did not do. It's so easy for us to look about us and think about the poor people in the world who just don't know who Jesus really is. But I'd like to bring it a little bit closer to us today for your meditation. And I want to read this to you. Maybe it will help you raise your estimation of Jesus today. The presence of Christ was in the beginning. The presence of Christ was in the Garden of Eden. The presence of Christ was in the world since the fall. The presence of Christ was with God's people in Egypt. The presence of Christ was with Israel in the desert. The presence of Christ became flesh and blood and dwelt among us. The presence of Christ by the Spirit filled the church at Pentecost. The presence of Christ abides in every believer. The presence of Christ is in me and sends me into the world to love for God's glory. Every good thing that has ever happened to mankind is from his presence. Abide in his presence right now. I continue to believe that the most dangerous mistake that we can do as believers is to underestimate Jesus Christ. If we estimate Jesus correctly, and I believe that that is a work of the Holy Spirit to open our eyes to who we're really dealing with, and it'll probably take all eternity for the Spirit to gently open our eyes to everything that Jesus is. I'm not sure that we can even totally grasp until we are actually in his grasp, in his one, as Jesus would say, one with the Father, one with him, one in our mind, one in our emotions, one in our will. When we become one, then I believe that our estimation of Jesus will be something that will be not shocking, but marvelous, time after time after time. I don't think anybody could have invented the story of Jesus. I don't think that anybody could have put together the details that we find in the Gospels of what happened through Jesus and by Jesus and what the whole story comes down to. I don't think that we could have made this up. The same way I don't believe we could have made up reality. Reality is so much more fantastic than what we're able to even perceive. But I think of all the things that we could possibly perceive, to actually believe that the universe is governed by a competent, perfect love, God, and that love became flesh, human flesh, and dwelt among us, and we could see this balance between grace and truth. I want to encourage you today to lift up your eyes and raise your estimation of Jesus a little more every day. A little more every day. Understand whose presence lives in you. I believe that you will raise the quality of every single part of your life. I believe that I will raise the quality of my experience of living as I begin to adjust my understanding by the power of the Holy Spirit in my life to actually begin to understand what it means to have someone in flesh and blood say, before Abraham was, I am. Think on that. He's standing in front of this group and he says, before Abraham was. Remember, half the population of the world, Jews, Muslims, and Christian, we all venerate Abraham. Half the population of the world, we venerate Abraham. Now, get the picture in your mind. Jesus is there physically in front of them, and he says, before Abraham, I am. Raise your estimation of Jesus. You'll raise the quality of your life because he is your life. God bless you. Have a great day. Think on these things.